A group of tired travelers walks through a forgotten ancient city at dusk, their shadows long and trembling, unaware that every human mind carries hidden switches that can be turned on by the right words, the right timing, and the right emotional pressure. In dark psychology, the first rule is simple. People believe what protects their identity, not what is true. And if you threaten someone's identity, their brain will rewrite reality to feel safe again. This is why when someone feels attacked, they don't defend facts, they defend themselves, and that defense becomes their new truth. The human mind is not a logical machine. It is a survival machine pretending to be logical. And once you understand this, you can predict behavior before people themselves know what they will do. Fear is stronger than reason, and belonging is stronger than fear. So whoever controls belonging controls behavior, crowds, movements, and even history. This is why cults, empires, and ideologies don't start with weapons, they start with stories. Stories that make people feel chosen, special, and morally superior. Once someone believes they are special, they will defend that belief even when it destroys them. Because losing that belief feels worse than losing comfort, friends, or even freedom. The mind prefers a painful lie over a peaceful truth if the lie protects the ego. And that is why manipulation works even on intelligent people. Smart people are often easier to manipulate because they build better justifications for the trap they fall into. The second rule of dark psychology is isolation. Separate someone emotionally from alternative viewpoints, and their world shrinks until you become the only mirror they can see themselves in. Isolation doesn't mean physical distance, it means emotional distance where disagreeing voices feel unsafe, hostile, or immoral. Once isolated, the brain becomes hungry for approval, and hunger makes people accept rules they would have once rejected. The third rule is reward and punishment, not through pain but through emotional warmth and emotional withdrawal, which the brain experiences as survival and death. And approval feels like oxygen, and rejection feels like suffocation, even when nothing physical is happening at all. This is why silent treatment hurts more than insults, because the brain reads social abandonment as a threat to existence. Over time, the manipulated person begins to regulate themselves, behaving correctly even when no one is watching because the controller has moved inside their head. At this stage, control no longer needs force, it only needs suggestion. The most dangerous prisons are not made of stone, but of beliefs that feel like freedom. And the most powerful chains are invisible because people defend them as their own choices. Dark psychology is not about evil people. It is about human nature under pressure, and once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. The same mechanisms that create monsters also create heroes, depending on who holds the story, the mirror, and the reward. History is not written by the strongest, but by those who shape meaning, and meaning shapes behavior. And right now, as you listen to this, your brain is quietly deciding which parts feel safe to accept and which feel dangerous to reject. That decision is not conscious, it is emotional, and emotions are faster than thought. This is why awareness is the only real defense, because once you see the strings, they lose their power to pull you. But most people do not want freedom, they want certainty. And certainty is the doorway through which control always enters.
In the hands of those who understand the dark architecture of
those who
belief.
understand the dark architecture of belief. The ancient city grows darker as more figures gather, each carrying silent fears they do not understand. And the more uncertain the world feels, the more desperately the mind looks for someone to trust, even if that trust is built on illusion. Uncertainty creates psychological gravity, pulling people toward anyone who offers simple answers to complex pain. The mind hates chaos more than it hates control, because chaos offers no promise of survival. This is why people trade freedom for order again and again throughout history. The fourth rule of dark psychology is repetition, because repeated ideas feel true, not because they are correct, but because they are familiar. Familiarity creates safety, and safety creates belief. This is why propaganda is never loud at first. It is gentle, constant, and everywhere. Over time, the brain stops questioning what feels normal, and normal becomes moral. Once behavior feels moral, people defend it with passion, even when it harms others. Moral emotion is the strongest fuel for manipulation, because it makes control feel righteous. The fifth rule is identity fusion, when a person no longer says, "I believe this," but says, "This is who I am." When identity and belief merge, changing the belief feels like psychological death. At this stage, people will sacrifice relationships, careers, and even their lives to protect an idea. The controller no longer needs to persuade, they only need to threaten identity. Shame becomes a weapon, because shame attacks identity directly. Guilt controls behavior, but shame controls existence. This is why the deepest manipulators do not argue. They label. Labels turn humans into categories, and categories are easier to control than people. Once categorized, empathy weakens and obedience strengthens. The sixth rule is controlled rebellion, allowing small acts of resistance that make people feel free while keeping the core system untouched. This gives the illusion of freedom while protecting control. The brain needs to feel autonomous to stay calm, even when it is not. This is why systems survive longer when they allow limited disagreement. The debate distracts from the cage. Over time, people forget what real freedom feels like because they have never experienced it. They defend the system because it feels like home. Visual. Families sitting peacefully inside a glowing enclosure, ancient mythic painting. And when someone tries to break the illusion, the system uses the people themselves as its defenders. The controller disappears and the controlled become the controllers. This is the final stage of dark psychology, when no one seems in charge yet nothing can change. As the night deepens over the ancient city, the crowd no longer feels like individuals but like a single breathing organism, moving, reacting, and believing in perfect synchronization. Because once enough minds align around the same emotional signal, independent thought becomes friction rather than freedom. The seventh rule of dark psychology is emotional contagion, where fear, anger, or hope spreads faster than any idea ever could. Humans copy emotions before they copy logic, and they copy behavior before they understand why they are copying it. This is why riots, manias, and movements erupt suddenly, not because people think together, but because they feel together. The eighth rule is narrative compression, turning complex reality into simple stories with heroes, villains, and victims. Because the brain prefers stories it can emotionally digest over truths it cannot emotionally carry. Once a story is accepted, all new information is filtered through it, and anything that contradicts it feels hostile and dangerous. The ninth rule is false urgency, creating the feeling that something must be done now, because urgency shuts down reflection and hands control to instinct. Under urgency, the brain trades accuracy for speed, and speed always favors whoever prepared the story in advance. This is why countdowns, crises, and deadlines are powerful tools of influence. The 10th rule is emotional exhaustion, where constant stimulation drains the mind until it becomes passive and compliant. A tired mind does not resist, it accepts. This is why endless news, endless outrage, and endless fear create obedience, not awareness. The 11th rule is moral licensing, where doing one good act gives the mind permission to accept a later wrong one. People do not fall into darkness, they step into it slowly while telling themselves they are still good. The 12th rule is identity fatigue, when holding a belief becomes so tiring that people stop defending it and simply follow whatever feels easier. At this stage, even obvious manipulation feels preferable to internal conflict. The system no longer needs to hide because resistance has become inconvenient. Control succeeds not when people are forced, but when they are tired of resisting. And so the ancient city sleeps not because it is peaceful, but because it is synchronized.